The woman who owned half the territory arrived at dawn. She didn't knock. Kalen Ridge stood in the doorway of what used to be his house, watching her dismount from a horse that probably cost more than everything he had left. Vesper, Crane, 6 feet of controlled fury and riding boots, and a hat that cast shadows across eyes that had seen men broken. She'd taken his land, his cattle, his future, and now she'd come for the one thing he still pretended to own, his pride. What he didn't know was that she'd come for something else entirely, something that would change both their lives in ways neither could predict. And when she spoke those words, everything he thought he knew about survival would shatter. 3 months. That's how long Kalen had been renting his own land back from her. 3 months of waking up in a house that no longer belonged to him, working fields that carried another name on the deed. The drought had taken everything. No rain for 11 months. Cattle dying in pastures that turned to dust. Wells running dry while he watched his legacy disappear one cracked acre at a time. When the bank came calling, Vesper Crane had been there with cash in hand and terms that left him nowhere to go. He could stay, she'd said, work the land, pay rent, keep breathing. The alternative was the road with nothing but the clothes on his back. He'd chosen breathing, hated himself for it every single morning since. Now she stood 15 feet away, her horse's reins loose in her hand, eyes fixed on him like he was livestock she was considering purchasing. The sun hadn't fully risen yet, and the air still carried that desert cold that made your bones ache. Callan could see his breath, could see hers too, steady and controlled, while his came faster than he wanted. "You're 3 weeks late," Vesper said. Her voice carried across the distance between them like a blade drawn slow from a sheath. No anger in it, no emotion at all. That's what made it worse. She didn't need to yell. She owned him, and they both knew it. Callan's jaw tightened. "I am aware. Are you?" Not question. She took 3 steps forward, and he forced himself not to step back. Forced himself to meet those eyes that seemed to calculate exactly how much he was worth broken down into parts. 3 weeks, Ridge. That's 21 days you've lived in my house without paying what you owe. I've been working to the land. She finished my land. Yes, I'm familiar with the arrangement. You work, I get paid. Simple transaction. Except the payment part seems to have escaped your attention. Her presence filled the space between them like heat from fire. Can have forgotten how tall she was, how she seemed to take up more room than her body should allow. The men in town talked about her in whispers, called her the Iron Widow since her husband had died 2 years back. Said she turned harder than the drought-baked earth that she collected. Properties like other women collected recipes. What they didn't say, what Ken couldn't help noticing now, was how her presence made the air feel thinner. How looking at her too long made something uncomfortable shift in his chest. "I'll have it by week's end," he said. "You won't." She said it with the certainty of someone reading yesterday's news. "You didn't have it last week. You won't have it this week. So let's stop pretending this is about money you don't have and start discussing what happens next." "And what's that?" Vesper's lips curved slightly. Not quite a smile. Something sharper. "You come work for me directly. Not this halfway arrangement where you pretend you're still independent. I work for myself. You work on my property, Ridge. There's a difference." She took another step closer, close enough now that he could smell leather and something else. Something like sage. "After rain, I have 300 head of cattle that need moving. I have fences that won't mend themselves. I have men who think because I'm a woman, they can steal from me and I won't notice." Her eyes locked onto his. "I need someone who knows this land. Someone who has something to lose if they fail me." Ken felt his hands curl into fists at his sides. "And if I say no, then you're off my property by noon, and I burn your father's name off the gate on your way out." The words hit like a fist to the gut. The gate, the one piece of this place that still carried the Ridge name carved into the wood. His grandfather had made it. His father had maintained it, and now this woman held it hostage like everything else. But something in her eyes when she said it, something that flickered just for a second, like she knew exactly where to cut and hated that she had to do it. "You do that," Callan said quietly. "You'd burn it. I'd do worse to keep what's mine." Vesper turned, started walking back to her horse. Then she stopped, spoke without looking at him. "But I'd rather you said, yes. Despite what you think of me, Ridge, I'm not in the business of destroying men for sport. Could have fooled me." She looked back over her shoulder. For just a moment, something cracked in that iron composure. Something tired, something that looked almost like loneliness. "You have until the sun clears those hills. After that, the offer disappears." Vesper mounted her horse with the fluid grace of someone who'd spent more time in the saddle than on the ground. She didn't wait for an answer, didn't look back as she rode toward the main house on the eastern ridge, where she lived in the sprawling structure that had once belonged to the previous landowner before she'd acquired. That, too. Ken stood in the doorway, watching her go, his mind racing through options that all ended the same way. Pride or survival, dignity or destruction. And underneath it all, something else he didn't want to name. Something about the way she'd looked at him for that single second when the mask had slipped. Something that suggested Vesper Crane was as trapped in this as he was. The sun began its slow climb over the eastern hills. He had maybe 30 minutes to decide if he was going to work for the woman who'd taken everything from him, or if he was going to walk away with nothing but his pride and nowhere to go. But as he turned to go inside, he saw something that made him stop cold. There in the dirt near where Vesper's horse had stood was a boot print, and next to it, something else, another set of prints, smaller. Someone had been watching their conversation from the trees. Someone who'd left in a hurry when Vesper arrived. And suddenly, working for Vesper Crane seemed like the least dangerous thing about this morning. Callan knelt in the dirt, studying the boot prints with the careful attention his father had taught him. Two sets, one belonged to Vesper, her distinctive heel marked clear in the dust. The other was smaller, deeper on the right side, like someone favoring an injured leg. Whoever had been watching had stood there for at least 10 minutes based on how the impressions overlapped. They'd waited, listened, then disappeared into the tree the moment Vesper arrived. The sun climbed higher. His decision time was running out. He found Vesper at the main house, standing on the wide porch that overlooked the valley. She didn't turn when his boots hit the wooden steps, but her shoulders tensed slightly. She knew he was there. "I'll work for you," Callan said, "but I have conditions." Now she turned, that slight curve of her lips again, the one that wasn't quite a smile. "You think you're in a position to make demands? You came to me personally. You could have sent any of your men to throw me out. You didn't." He held her gaze. "That tells me you need me specifically. So yes, conditions." Something flickered in her eyes. Respect maybe, or calculation. With Vesper, it was hard to tell the difference. "I am listening. I keep the gate, the one with my family name. When I'm done working for you, I get it back." "Done. What else? I want to know what I'm really getting into." "You said men are stealing from you. I want the truth about what's happening on this land." Vesper was quiet for a long moment. She walked to the edge of the porch, her hands resting on the railing. "3 of my cattle hands have quit in the past month. 2 of them left in the middle of the night without collecting their pay. The third one's horse came back without him. We found him 2 days later walking the north road. He wouldn't say what happened, just took his money and left town. Could be anything. Men quit. Not like this. Not good men who need the work." She looked at him over her shoulder. "Something scaring them off my land, Rich. And whatever it is, it's costing me more than missing cattle. It's costing me respect. People in town think I can't control my own property." Callan moved closer, stopping a few feet behind her, close enough to see the tension in her spine, the way her knuckles had gone white, gripping the railing. You think someone's trying to push you out? I know they are. I just don't know who yet. She turned to face him fully. That's where you come in. You know every inch of this land. You know the people. You find out what's happening. And I'll give you more than just your gate back. Like what? 20 acres. Free and clear. Your choice of where on the property. Her eyes locked onto his. Help me save this land, and I'll give you back a piece of it. It was a good offer. Too good. Ken's instincts screamed trap, but something in her expression stopped him from refusing outright. She looked tired, not physically, but somewhere deeper, like she'd been fighting alone for so long. She'd forgotten what it felt like to have someone on her side. Who else knows about this offer? He asked. No one, and it stays that way. As far as anyone knows, you're just another hand working the cattle. Why me? Why not hire someone from outside? Someone who doesn't have history with this place. Vesper took a step closer, close enough that he could see flecks of gold in her brown eyes. Because everyone else who works for me is afraid of something. And you, Ridge, you're too angry to be afraid. That's what I need right now. Someone too stubborn to run. Her honesty caught him off guard. It was the first time she'd spoken to him like he was something other than an obstacle or an asset, like he was a person she might actually trust. There's something else, Ken said. This morning when you came to the house, someone was watching us from the trees. Left tracks. Vesper's expression went cold. Show me. They rode back to his place in silence. Vesper on her tall mare. Callan on the aging gelding that had survived the drought by sheer stubbornness. The boot prints were still there, already starting to blur in the morning breeze. Vesper dismounted, studied them with the same careful attention Callan had used earlier. Small feet. Could be a woman or a young man. She straightened, scanning the tree in. Whoever it was, they knew we'd be there. They were waiting. How would they know? You were coming? I didn't tell anyone. Vesper's jaw tightened, which means either they're watching the main house, or they're watching you. A chill ran down Ken's spine that had nothing to do with the morning air. Why would anyone watch me? I'm nobody now. Maybe that's exactly why. Vesper mounted her horse, looked down at him with something that might have been concern. Or maybe whoever's trying to push me out thinks. You're my weakness now. Either way, Ridge, you just became a target. She rode off before he could respond, leaving him standing in the dirt with boot prints that belonged to a ghost and the uncomfortable realization that working for Vesper Crane might be the most dangerous decision he'd ever made. But as he turned to go inside, he saw something that made his blood run cold. There on his doorframe, freshly carved into the wood where it hadn't been in. Hour ago were 3 words. She owns you. Callan didn't sleep that night. He sat in the dark with his rifle across his lap, watching the windows for movement that never came. The carved words haunted him more than any physical threat could. Whoever had left that message wanted him to know they could get close, wanted him afraid. By dawn, he'd made a decision. Fear was a luxury he couldn't afford. He found Vesper in the northern pasture at sunrise, already working. She was mending a section of fence that had been cut clean through, her hands moving with practiced efficiency. She didn't look up when he approached, but she spoke. Couldn't sleep either. Someone carved a message into my door. 3 words. He dismounted, grabbed a section of wire to help. She owns you. Vesper's hands stilled. When yesterday morning, after you left, and you're still here, she looked at him then, something unreadable in her expression. Most men will have run by now. I'm not most men. Callan pulled the wire tight while she secured it. Besides, whoever left that message made a mistake. They told me exactly what they're afraid of, which is us working together. If I was nobody, they wouldn't bother threatening me. They're scared because they know what I know about this land. He met her eyes across the fence post. What are you not telling me, Crane? Because this feels personal. Like someone doesn't just want your property, they want you broken. Vesper was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer than he'd ever heard it. My husband didn't die in an accident. He was murdered. The words hung in the air, between them like smoke. Ken felt something cold settle in his chest. The story was he fell from his horse. That's what the sheriff ruled. But Marcus was the best rider in 3 territories. He didn't fall. She turned back to the fence, her movements sharper now, angry. 2 days before he died, he told me, someone had approached him, offered to buy all our land at half value. When he refused, they threatened him, said, accidents happen to stubborn men. Did he tell the sheriff? He told me not to worry about it. Said he'd handle it. Her voice cracked slightly. 3 days later, I was a widow. Kaylin understood now. The hardness, the iron control. Vesper Crane hadn't just lost her husband. She'd lost him to the same people now trying to take everything else from her. And you think whoever killed him is still after the land? I know they are because the same man who approached Marcus showed up at my door 6 months ago, made me the same offer, same price, same threats. She looked at him, and for the first time he saw real fear in her eyes. I said no. That's when the cattle hand started disappearing. Who was he? Said his name. Was Garrett. Tall man, scar across his left hand. Spoke like he was used to getting what he wanted. Vesper's jaw tightened. He'll come back. Men like that always do. And when he does, I need to know I'm not alone. The vulnerability in her voice did something to Ken's anger. Shifted it from resentment to something more complicated. She wasn't just the woman who'd taken his land. She was someone fighting the same kind of fight he was. Someone who'd lost everything that mattered and refused to let it break her. You're not alone, he heard himself say. Vesper held his gaze. Something passed between them in that moment. An understanding, a recognition. They were both broken pieces of what used to be whole lives. And maybe working together, they could survive. What was coming? There's more, Vesper said. The north pasture where my cattle keep disappearing. I went out there yesterday after I left your place. Found something. She reached into her coat pocket, pulled out a piece of torn fabric. This was caught on the fence near where the tracks led. It's from a uniform. Callan took it, studying the material. His stomach dropped. This is from the sheriff's office. I know. Vesper's voice was flat, which means whoever's doing this has law on their side. We're not just fighting thieves. Rich, we're fighting the whole system. Before Kaylin could respond, the sound of hoof beats made them both turn. 3 riders were approaching fast from the southern ridge. Even from a distance, Kaylin recognized the lead horse. Sheriff Dalton, flanked by 2 deputies. Let me do the talking, Vesper said quietly. The sheriff pulled up hard, his horse dancing sideways. He was a big man with a face that had seen too much sun and not enough conscience. His eyes landed on Ken with something that looked like satisfaction. Mrs. Crane, heard you hired yourself a new hand. I did. Is that a crime? Depends. Dalton's smile didn't reach his eyes. See, I got a report this morning. Someone claimed they saw a ridge here cutting your fence. Said he was letting your cattle loose. Trying to make you look bad. Ken's hands curled into fists. That's a lie. Is it? The sheriff leaned forward in his saddle because it seems mighty convenient. You lose your land to Mrs. Crane and suddenly her property starts falling apart. Man might think you're looking for revenge. Callan was with me yesterday. Vesper said, her voice ice all day. Your witness is mistaken. Maybe, or maybe you're covering for him. Dalton's eyes moved between them. Either way, I'm here to take him in for questioning. You can come peaceful, ridge, or we can do this the hard way. Callan looked at Vesper, saw the calculation in her eyes, the choice forming. She could let him get arrested, protect herself, or she could fight for him and make herself an even bigger target. She stepped forward, placing herself between Kaylin and the sheriff's horse. You're not taking him anywhere without a warrant, Dalton. And we both know you don't have one. The sheriff's expression went cold. You're making a mistake, Mrs. Crane. Protecting him makes you complicit. Then I'm complicit. Get off my land. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Dalton smiled, and it was the most dangerous thing Kalen had seen all day. Out your way. But when this all falls apart, and it will, remember I gave you a chance to walk away clean. The three riders turned and left, but the threat hung in the air. Long after they disappeared over the ridge, Vesper stood perfectly still, her breathing controlled, but faster than normal. Kalen could see her hands shaking slightly. You shouldn't have done that, he said quietly. You just pinned a target on yourself. I already had one. She turned to look at him, and something in her expression made his breath catch. At least now I'm not facing it alone. But as they stood there, Kalen noticed something that made his blood turn to ice. In the dirt near where the sheriff's horse had stood, there were boot prints the same size and pattern as the ones from his house that morning. The same distinctive wear on the right heel. The sheriff, or one of his deputies, had been the one watching them, which meant every move they made, every plan they formed was being reported to the people trying to destroy them. The realization hit Ken like a physical blow. The sheriff had been watching them from the beginning. Every conversation, every plan, every moment. They thought they were alone. They'd been exposed. Vesper saw his expression change. What is it? He pointed to the boot prints. Same pattern as the ones at my house. Whoever was watching us this morning was one of them. Her face went pale. For a moment, she looked like she might be sick. Then the iron returned to her spine, and she straightened. We need to leave now. If they're watching this closely, they know we found the uniform piece. They'll come back tonight. Cool, me. Back for what? To finish what they started with Marcus. She was already moving toward her horse. Pack what you need. You're staying at the main house from now on. Callan caught her arm. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through him, and from the way her eyes widened, she felt it too. He let go quickly. I'm not running to your house like some scared hired hand. That's exactly what they want. They want us predictable. Then what do you suggest? We set a trap. Let them think they've won. His mind was racing now, fitting pieces together. The fence they cut, the cattle they've been taking. They're not just trying to scare you. They're creating evidence, making it look like your operation is failing, so you'll be forced to sell cheap. Vesper's eyes narrowed. Keep talking. Tonight, we let them think we're beaten. You go back to the main house. I stay at my place. But we watch. We see who comes, what they do, and we get proof. He met her gaze. Real proof. Something even a corrupt sheriff can't ignore. That's dangerous. Everything about this is dangerous. At least this way we control it. She studied him for a long moment. Standing this close, he could see the exhaustion in her face. The lines around her eyes from too many sleepless nights. Could smell that scent of sage and leather that seemed to follow her everywhere. Something in his chest tightened. You know, Vesper said, quietly, when I bought your land, I thought you'd hate me forever. Part of me wanted you to. It was easier than feeling guilty. I did hate you for about 2 months. And now, Ken didn't have an answer that made sense. Or maybe he did and wasn't ready to say it. Now I think we're both trapped in the same burning building. Hating you won't put out the fire. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. That's almost poetic. Ridge, don't tell anyone. It'll ruin my reputation. The moment stretched between them, something shifting that Ken couldn't quite name. Then Vesper stepped back, and the distance felt like loss. If we're doing this, we do it smart. I have a rifle that belonged to Marcus. Shoots. Truer than anything else I own. You'll need it. I have my own gun. I've seen your gun. It's older than you are. She was already walking toward her horse. Be at the main house in an hour. We'll plan this properly. Callan watched her right away, his mind churning. An hour ago, she'd been the enemy who'd taken everything. Now she was the only person he trusted in a town full of lies. The shift was disorienting, dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with conspiracies and corrupt lawmen. He went back to his house, started gathering what he'd need for a long night of watching. That's when he noticed it. The papers on his table had been moved. Not much, just slightly out of alignment with how he'd left them. Someone had been inside while he and Vasper were in the north pasture. His blood went cold. He checked the room carefully, looking for what was missing or what had been left behind. It didn't take long to find it. There on his bed was a photograph, old, faded. It showed a young woman standing in front of the very house he was in now. She was smiling, her hand resting on a fence post. He recognized the woman. She died 20 years ago. Kalen's mother. Scrolled across the bottom of the photograph in fresh ink were 5 words that made his stomach turn. Your family knew the secret. His hand shook as he held the picture. What secret? His father had been a simple rancher. His mother a school teacher before she got sick. They'd lived quiet lives. Died quietly. What could they possibly have known that mattered now? Unless everything he thought he knew about his family was a lie. Callan shoved the photograph in his pocket and headed for Vesper's main house, his mind reeling. But as he saddled his horse, he noticed something else. Carved into the saddle, where it would press against his leg all day, was a single word. Soon they weren't just watching anymore. They were inside his head, inside his home, and they wanted him to know that whatever was coming, it was going to happen on their timeline, not his. He rode hard for the main house, the photograph burning like a coal in his pocket. Whatever trap he and Vesper were planning to set, they needed to do it fast because the real trap was already closing around them, and they were running out of time to escape it. When he reached the main house, Vesper was on the porch, her expression dark. She held up a piece of paper. This was nailed to my door 10 minutes ago. Kalen dismounted, took the paper. It was a foreclosure notice dated for 3 days from now. The bank was calling in Vespers. Loans, demanding immediate payment of a sum no one could raise in 72 hours. And at the bottom, in the same handwriting as the message on the photograph, was a note. Last chance. Sell or lose. Everything. Vesper paced the length of her porch like a caged animal. Callan had never seen her lose composure before, but she was close now. Her hands kept clenching and unclenching at her sides, her jaw so tight he could see the muscle working. 3 days. They gave me 3 days. She stopped, looked at him, with eyes that blazed with fury and something that looked dangerously close to desperation. The bank manager is Nathan Garrett's brother-in-law. I should have seen this coming. Garrett, the man who threatened your husband. The same? She leaned against the porch railing and for a moment looked like she might break. I don't have the money. Ridge, even if I sold every head of cattle, every piece of equipment, I couldn't raise that much in 3 days. They've been planning this for months, maybe years. Callum moved closer, close, enough to see her hands trembling. Without thinking, he covered one of them with his own. The touch froze them both. Her skin was warm despite the cold afternoon air, and he could feel her pulse racing under his fingers. We fight, he said quietly. That's what we do. Vesper looked at their hands, then up at his face. Something passed between them that had nothing to do with conspiracies or foreclosures. Something raw and honest and terrifying. Why are you helping me? I took everything from you. Maybe that's exactly why I understand what you're going through. He didn't pull his hand away. Couldn't seem to make himself. Or maybe I'm just tired of running from things that matter. She turned her hand over, her fingers threading through his. It was the most intimate thing that had happened between them, and somehow more dangerous than any of the threats they'd faced. If we lose, you lose everything all over again. If we don't fight, we've already lost. The moment stretched, both of them aware they were crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Then Vesper pulled back, the distance between them suddenly feeling like a canyon. I need to show you something in the house. She led him inside to a study lined with ledgers and maps. The room smelled of old paper and ink. Vesper went to a locked drawer, produced a key from around her neck, and pulled out a leather folder. Marcus kept records. Everything, every person who approached him about buying land, every threat, every strange thing that happened in the months before he died. She opened the folder, spread papers across the desk. He knew he was in danger. He just didn't know how deep it went. Ken studied the documents. What he saw made his blood run cold. The conspiracy wasn't just about Vesper's land. It was about water rights. There was a river that ran underground through her property, and someone had discovered it was fed by a massive aquifer that stretched for miles in a territory where drought could kill a town. Whoever controlled that water controlled everything. This is what they're after, he said. Not just your land, the water under it. I know. I figured it out 6 months ago when I found Marcus's notes. Vesper's voice was hollow. That's why I can't sell. If Garrett gets this land, he'll control every water source in 3 territories. Towns will have to pay him for the right to drink. Ranchers will go bankrupt. He'll own everything. Does anyone else know about this? Just us. And whoever killed Marcus. She looked at him, and in her eyes, he saw the weight she'd been carrying alone. That's why they're so desperate. I'm the only thing standing between them, in complete control. Kaylin felt the pieces falling into place. The photograph they left me, the one of my mother. My family knew about the water. What? He pulled a photograph from his pocket, showed her. The writing. Vesper's face went pale. Your father sold me the land for almost nothing. I thought he was just desperate after your mother died. But what if he knew? What if he sold it to me because he knew I'd fight to keep it? The idea settled over both of them like a revelation. Kaylin's father hadn't been weak or desperate. He'd been strategic. He'd put the land in the hands of the one person in the territory who was stubborn enough and strong enough to hold it against people like Garrett. He protected it, Kaylin said quietly. By giving it to you, Vesper's eyes shimmered. But she didn't let the tears fall. He must have known what it would cost you. What would cost all of us? Before Ken could respond, the sound of breaking glass came from deeper in the house. They both froze. Then came the smell. Smoke. They ran toward the back of the house, found the kitchen filling with black smoke. Someone had thrown a torch through the window. The curtains were already engulfed in flames. Fire spreading fast across the old wooden walls. Get water. Vesper was already tearing down the burning curtains, stamping on them. Ken grabbed a bucket, started hauling water from the pump, but the fire was spreading faster than they could control it. Within minutes, half the kitchen was burning. We have to get out. Callan grabbed Vesper's arm, pulled her toward the door. She resisted, trying to save what she could, but the smoke was too thick. They stumbled out onto the back porch, coughing, eyes streaming. The fire consumed the kitchen in minutes, spreading toward the main structure of the house. Vesper stood, watching her. Homeburn, her face illuminated by the orange glow. Kaylin could see every emotion crossing her features. Rage, grief, exhaustion. Then something changed. Her expression went cold, calculated. She turned to him, and in her eyes was something that looked almost like relief. They just made a mistake. She said quietly, What? They're getting desperate. Sloppy. If they were confident, they'd wait for the foreclosure, but they're not waiting. She looked at him, and a dangerous smile touched her lips. Which means theirs. Something we have that they need right now. Something that scares them. The records. Marcus's evidence. They don't. No, I have them, but they suspect. She grabbed his hand, pulled him away from the burning house. We need to get to town tonight before they can stop us. Town? Vesper? The sheriff is in on this. The sheriff is, but the territorial judge isn't. He arrives tomorrow on the noon stage. If we can get Marcus evidence to him before Garrett knows what's happening, we can stop the foreclosure and expose the whole conspiracy. It was a desperate plan, dangerous. But as Ken looked at the burning house at Vesper's determined face illuminated by flames, he realized. They were out of safe options. It was time to stop defending and start attacking. "Then let's go," he said. They ran for the stables, but Ken's instincts were screaming that something was wrong. The fire had been a distraction, a way to flush them out. And as they rounded the corner of the stable, he understood why. 6 men stood, waiting in the shadows, rifles pointed at them, and in the center, smiling like he'd already won, was a tall man with a scar across his left hand. Nathan Garrett had come to finish what he started. Nathan Garrett looked exactly like Vesper had described him. Tall, lean, with eyes that calculated value in everything they saw. The scar across his left hand caught the firelight from the burning house behind them, making it look like a fresh wound. "Mrs. Crane, I have to say, I'm disappointed." His voice was smooth, educated, the kind of voice that belonged to boardrooms and business deals, not armed ambushes in the dark. "I gave you every opportunity to do this the civilized way, but you insisted on making things difficult." Vesper's hand found Callan squeezed once, a warning or reassurance. He couldn't tell. "The civilized way like you gave my husband." Garrett's smile didn't falter. Marcus was stubborn. He made choices that had consequences. "I'm hoping you're smarter than he was. Smart enough to know you'll kill us whether we cooperate or not." "Kill you?" Garrett laughed, genuinely amused. "Mrs. Crane, I'm a businessman, not a murderer. I simply want what's mine. The land, the water rights, and those documents your late husband so inconveniently compiled." Callan felt Vesper tense beside him. The documents, they were still in the house. The burning house. If Garrett got them, any proof of the conspiracy would be destroyed. The documents burned. Vesper said. They were in the kitchen. Garrett's expression finally shifted. Uncertainty flickered across his face. "You're lying." "Am I?" "Check the ruins. Yourself. Everything in that study is ash now." For a moment, nobody moved. Ken could see Garrett calculating, trying to determine if she was bluffing. The 6 men with rifles looked nervous, their eyes darting between Garrett and the fire. One of them, Callan noticed, was wearing a deputy's badge. "Even if that's true," Garrett said slowly, "it doesn't change your situation. You still owe the bank money you don't have. In 3 days, this land becomes mine anyway. All you've done is make yourself homeless in the process. 3 days is a long time." Vesper took a step forward and Ken felt his heart stop. She was walking toward armed men like she had nothing to lose. A lot can happen. A territorial judge can arrive. Evidence can be presented. Conspiracies can be exposed. Garrett's hand moved to his holster. Or accidents can happen. Terrible accidents. 2. People caught in a house fire trying to save what they could. Tragic, really, but these things happen in droughts. Wood gets so dry. The threat was clear. They'd never make it to town, never reach the judge. Garrett would kill them tonight and burn the evidence with the house. But Vesper smiled. It was the coldest thing Callan had ever seen. The thing about Marcus documents. Garrett, he was always careful. Made copies. Sent them to people he trusted. She gestured to the burning house. That wasn't the only set. Garrett's face went white. "You're bluffing. Maybe. Or maybe while you've been watching me. I've been 2 steps ahead of you." She moved closer. Still fearless. "Kill us. And those documents go to the federal marshal in the capital. By telegraph. Tonight I have people waiting for my signal. If I don't send word that I'm alive by midnight, they send everything." Callan held his breath. He had no idea if she was telling the truth or gambling their lives on the greatest bluff he'd ever seen. But from the look on Garrett's face, he wasn't sure either. "You're smart," Garrett finally said. "Smarter than your husband, but you're also trapped. You can't stay on this land. You can't pay your debts. So what's your play here, Mrs. Crane? Because from where I stand, you've got nothing. I've got time. 3 days of it, and I've got something you need more than I need your money." She crossed her arms. I've got water rights you can't touch without my signature. You can foreclose on the land, but the water rights are separate. Marcus made sure of that. Without my consent, that aquifer stays locked, and I will never consent. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the burning house seemed to quiet. Garrett's expression shifted from confident to calculating to something that looked almost like respect. A stalemate, then for now. Vesper glanced at Ken, then back at Garrett. But like I said, 3 days is a long time, and I'm very good at making the most of limited time. Garrett studied them both for a long moment. Then he gestured to his men. Lower your weapons. We're leaving, sir. The deputy looked confused. But I said, we're leaving. Garrett's voice was steel. Mrs. Crane and I are going to resolve this like civilized people. Aren't we? Mrs. Crane? Civilized? Like you resolve things with Marcus? Something dangerous flashed in Garrett's eyes. Your husband died because he was careless. I'd hate for history to repeat itself. Accidents happen so easily out here, especially to people who don't have anyone watching their backs. He looked pointedly at Ken. The threat was clear. They could kill Kaylin and claim it was unrelated. One fewer person protecting Vesper, one step closer to breaking her. Come near him, Vesper said quietly, and I'll make sure. Every newspaper from here to Washington knows exactly what you are. I'll destroy you so thoroughly. You won't be able to buy water at a saloon. Garrett smiled. Protective. How touching. I look forward to seeing which one of you breaks first. He mounted his horse, his men following suit. But before he rode away, he looked back one last time. 3 days, Mrs. Crane. After that, water rights won't matter. You'll have nothing left to protect. And your friend there, he'll learn what happens to people who stand between me and what's mine. They disappeared into the darkness, leaving Kaylin and Vesper standing in the glow of the dying fire. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then, Vesper's legs gave out, and Kaylin caught her before she hit the ground. I've got you, he said quietly. She looked up at him, her face streaked with soot and tears she'd been holding back. The documents, they really did burn. I don't have copies. I don't have anything. You have me. That might not be enough. Kaylin helped her stand, but didn't let go. Then we make enough. We have 3 days. That's 3 days more than Garrett thinks we can survive. Vesper nodded, but he could see the fear in her eyes now. The bluff had worked, but barely. And when Garrett discovered she had nothing, he'd come back, and next time he wouldn't talk first. We need to get to town, Vesper said. Tonight, before he realizes I was lying. But as they turned toward the remaining horses, they saw something that made Callan's blood run cold. The stable doors were open. The horses were gone. Garrett's men had cut them loose. They were stranded alone, miles from town, with no evidence and no way to reach the judge. And Garrett knew it. They walked through the night, 15 miles to town, maybe more. The moon was half full, giving just enough light to see the road ahead. Vesper's expensive riding boots weren't made for this kind of journey, but she didn't complain, just kept walking. Her jaw set in that stubborn line Ken was beginning to recognize. By midnight, he could see her limping. We need to rest. We don't have time. We don't have a choice. You're bleeding through your boot. He pointed to the dark stain spreading across the leather. 5 minutes. That's all. She finally nodded, and they moved off the road to a cluster of rocks that offered some shelter. Vesper sat heavily, pulled off her boot with a sharp intake of breath. The back of her heel was raw, bleeding freely. She'd walked miles on an open wound without saying a word. Callan pulled off his shirt, Teray, stripped from the bottom. This is going to hurt. Everything hurts. But she let him wrap her foot, his hands gentle despite their roughness. The intimacy of the moment wasn't lost on either of them. His fingers against her skin, her eyes, on his face in the moonlight. Something passed between them that had nothing to do with survival. Why didn't you tell? Me? He asked quietly. Because stopping wouldn't change anything. We still need to get to town. She looked at him, and, in the moonlight, he could see every line of exhaustion on her face. I'm sorry I got you into this. You could have walked away. Should have. I made my choice. A choice that might get you killed. Callan finished wrapping her foot, but didn't move away. My father once told me that the measure of a person isn't what they do when things are easy. It's what they do when everything's falling apart. And they have to choose between what's right and what's safe. He met her eyes. You chose right. So did I. Vesper's hand came up, touched his face. Just a brush of her fingers against his jaw, but it sent electricity through him. I was wrong. About you, Ridge. When I bought your land, I thought you were just another failed rancher, someone weak. And now I think you might be the strongest man I've ever met. Her thumb traced his cheekbone and the most foolish. Anyone with sense would have run by now. Maybe I don't have sense. His hand covered hers against his face. Or maybe I just finally found something worth fighting for. The moment stretched between them, heavy with possibility. Kaylin could see her pulse beating in her throat, could feel the tremor in her hand. They'd crossed from allies to something else, something that made his chest ache and his breath come faster. He wanted to close the distance between them, wanted to kiss her until neither of them could remember why they were fighting, but the sound of hoof beats on the road made them both freeze. They pressed back against the rocks, barely breathing. Two riders passed, moving fast toward town. In the moonlight, Kaylin could see the glint of badges. Sheriff's men, probably, carrying word to Garrett that Vesper and Kaylin were stranded and vulnerable. When the sound faded, Vesper stood carefully, testing her wrapped foot. We need to move faster. If they're heading to town, Garrett will know we're coming. Then we don't go to town. She looked at him. The judge arrives at noon in town. How else do we reach him? The stage road. It runs through Carson Ridge before it reaches town. There's a way station there 8 miles north. If we cut across country, we can intercept the stage before it reaches Garrett's people. That's rough country. It'll take us the rest of the night, but we'll get there first. Callan offered his hand. Can you make it? Vesper took his hand, let him pull her to her feet. I walked 15 miles on a bleeding foot ridge. I can make 8 more. They moved through the darkness, leaving the road behind for rougher terrain. The land here was broken, full of ravines and scrub that caught at their clothes. More than once, Ken had to help Vesper across a wash or up a steep slope. Each time the contact between them felt like fire. And ice at once. Necessary, dangerous, inevitable. Dawn found them on a ridge, overlooking the way station. It was a small building with a corral and a water pump meant to service the stage on its journey between territories. Smoke rose from the chimney. Someone was there. If we go down there, Vesper said quietly, we're trusting whoever's inside. We have no weapons, no leverage, nothing but our word against Garrett's. Your word is enough. She looked at him, and something in her expression softened. You have more faith in me than I deserve, or exactly as much as you've earned. He started down the slope. Come on, the stage will be here in a few hours. We need to be ready. But as they approached the way station, the door opened. A woman stepped out, rifle in hand. She was older, maybe 60, with silver hair pulled back severe and eyes that missed. Nothing. She looked at them for a long moment, then lowered the rifle. Vesper Crane, I wondered when you'd show up. Vesper stopped, confusion crossing her face. Do I know you? You don't. But I knew your husband. The woman gestured them inside. Name's Ruth Mullery. Marcus sent me copies of his documents, too. Years ago. Said, if anything happened to him, I should hold them until you needed them. Looks like that time has. Cool, mate. Ken felt hope surge through him for the first time in days. The documents existed. Marcus had been even. more careful than they'd thought. But Ruth wasn't finished. There's something else you need to know about the water. About Garrett, about why your husband died. She looked at Callan, and about why your father gave up his land without a fight. She pulled out a folder, spread papers across the table. What they saw made both of them go cold. The conspiracy wasn't just about water rights. It was bigger, darker, and it went all the way to the territorial capital. Marcus didn't just discover an aquifer, Ruth said quietly. He discovered that Garrett and his partners have been buying up every water source in the territory for the past 5 years. They're planning to hold entire towns hostage. Your land, Vesper, is the last piece they need, and they'll burn this whole territory to get it. Kalen looked at the documents, his father's signature on one of them, a testimony, a warning, written the week before he died. My father knew. He knew everything. He did, and it killed him. Ruth met his eyes, just like it killed Marcus. And just like it'll kill you both if you go through with this. The stage horn sounded in the distance. The judge was coming. They had minutes to decide. Fight or run. Risk everything or save themselves. Vesper looked at Callan. In her eyes, he saw the same determination he felt. They'd come too far to stop now. We're going through with it. Vesper said, whatever it costs. Ruth nodded slowly. Then I hope you're ready. Because when Garrett finds out you have these documents, he won't just try to kill you. He'll try to destroy everything you love, everyone you've ever cared about. He'll make you wish you died with your husband. The stage was pulling up outside. The judge was here, and so was their last chance to stop Garrett. But as Kalen moved toward the door, Ruth grabbed his arm. One more thing, the sheriff. He's not Garrett's biggest ally in this. There's someone else. Someone closer to you both than you think. Someone who's been feeding Garrett information from the beginning. Who? Vesper demanded. Ruth's expression was grim. That's what you need to figure out before they figure out you're still alive. The territorial judge was a weathered man named Harrison Wells with eyes that had seen every kind of lie the frontier could produce. He stepped off the stage, brushed dust from his coat, and looked at Vesper and Kalen with the tired patience of someone who'd heard 1,000 desperate stories. Mrs. Crane, I heard about the foreclosure. I'm sorry, but bank matters aren't in my jurisdiction. This isn't about the bank. Vesper held up the folder Ruth had given them. This is about conspiracy, murder, and an attempt to control every water source in 3 territories. Wells's expression shifted. Those are serious accusations. I have serious evidence. She opened the folder, spread the documents across the way station table. My husband documented everything before he died. Names, dates, land purchases, water rights transfers. Nathan Garrett and his partners have been systematically buying up water sources and bankrupting anyone who won't sell. They murdered my husband when he refused. They burned my house last night, and they'll destroy this entire territory if someone doesn't stop them. The judge studied the documents carefully. His face grew darker with each page. This is detailed, very detailed. But Mrs. Crane, do you understand what you're alleging? Garrett has connections all the way to the territorial capital. Accusing him of this without absolute proof could destroy you. I have absolute proof. My husband's testimony, witness accounts, purchase records that show patterns of coercion. She pointed to a specific page. And I have this a confession, written by my ranch foreman 3 days before he disappeared. He was working for Garrett, feeding him information about my operation, sabotaging my fences, scaring off my workers. Ken felt his stomach drop. The foreman, a man who'd worked for Vesper for 2 years. The traitor had been inside the operation the whole time. Where is this foreman now? Wells asked. Gone. But his testimony is sworn and notarized. It's legal evidence. The sound of hoof beats interrupted them. Through the window, Kalen saw riders approaching fast. 6 of them led by Sheriff Dalton. And behind them, Nathan Garrett himself. They followed the stage. Callan said, they know we're here. Ruth moved to the door, rifle in hand. Judge Wells came. Here, under territorial protection. They can't touch him, but they can touch you. The riders pulled up outside. Garrett dismounted slowly, his expression calm, but his eyes cold. Judge Wells, what a plaisante surprise. I didn't expect to see you at this humble way station. Mr. Garrett. Wells's voice was neutral. Mrs. Crane was just presenting some interesting documents. Was she? Garrett's smile didn't reach his eyes. I imagine she's making all sorts of wild accusations. The woman's been unstable since her husband's death. Quite tragic, really. Now she's dragging this young man into her delusions. These aren't delusions. Vesper stepped forward and saw a steel in her spine that hadn't been there before. Saw the woman who'd survived, losing everything and still refused to break. These are facts, documented facts, and you're going to answer for every single one of them. Garrett's mask finally cracked. You have nothing. Your house burned. Your evidence burned with it. Whatever papers you're showing the judge are forgeries. Desperate lies from a desperate woman. Then why are you here? Kalen spoke for the first time, and 6 rifles swung toward him. He didn't flinch. If she has nothing, why bring armed men to a way station? Why threaten a territorial judge? Seems like you're the desperate one, Garrett. The silence that followed was absolute. Judge Wells looked between them, his expression thoughtful. Then he turned to the sheriff. Dalton, I'm placing Nathan Garrett under territorial investigation. You'll escort him to the Capitol where he'll answer questions about these allegations. Sir, I don't think that's you refusing a direct order from a territorial judge. Sheriff Wells's voice was iron because that would make you complicit in whatever crimes Mr. Garrett may have committed. Dalton's face went white. He looked at Garrett, then at the judge, calculating his options. Finally, he nodded. No, sir. I'm not refusing. Garrett's expression was murderous. This isn't over, Vesper. Even if I'm delayed, the foreclosure stands. You still can't pay your debts. In 2 days, your land becomes bank property, and the bank answers to my partners. About that, Ruth stepped forward, holding a different folder. Marcus wasn't just documenting your crimes. He was planning ahead. 2 years ago, he transferred water rights to a trust that can't be foreclosed on, can't be sold, and can't be transferred without unanimous approval from 3 trustees. She smiled. Those trustees are Vesper Crane, myself, and Judge Wells here, whom Marcus appointed specifically because he knew the judge couldn't be bought. Garrett's face went from red to white. That's impossible. I checked the records. You checked the property records. Marcus filed the water trust with the territorial government. Separate jurisdiction. Even if you foreclose on the land, you'll never control the water. And without the water, that land is worthless. Ruth's smile was sharp. You lose, Garrett. You just don't know it yet. The judge nodded. Slowly. Clever man. Your husband. Very clever. He looked at Garrett. Sheriff. Dalton. Take Mr. Garrett into custody. He'll remain under territorial guard until his hearing. Kalen watched as Garrett was led away. The man's face a mask of controlled fury. But before he mounted his horse, Garrett looked back at Vesper one last time. I had them burn your husband's favorite horse, too. The black mare. Just so you know, I wanted him to suffer before the end. Vesper's face went pale, but her voice was steady. And I want you to know that. Every day you spend answering for what you did to Marcus will be worth every sleepless night I've had since he died. I hope the weight of it crushes you. They watched the riders disappear toward town. Only when they were gone did Vesper's legs give out. Kin caught her, held her upright. It's over. You won. Did I? She looked up at him, and he could see the exhaustion, the grief, the relief all wearing in her expression. I lost my home. I still owe money I don't have. And even with the water rights protected, I can't run this operation. Alone. You're not alone. She searched his face. What are you saying? I'm saying that I've been fighting the wrong battle. I thought losing my land meant losing everything. but maybe it just meant finding something better. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his touch gentle. You asked me once why. I was helping you. The truth is somewhere between hating you and fighting beside you. I stopped seeing you as the woman who took my land. I started seeing you as the woman I'd follow anywhere. Vesper's eyes shimmered. Ridge, I don't need a hired hand. I don't need someone following me. Good, because I'm not offering to follow. He smiled, and it was the first real smile he'd felt in months. I'm offering to stand beside you as a partner. Equal stake, equal say, equal risk. You need someone who knows this land. I need someone who has the strength to hold it. Together we might actually make this work and the rent. The ghost of a smile touched her lips. You still owe me 3 months. So you say I can't pay my rent. He pulled her closer, and the space between them felt charged. What are you going to do about it? Crane? Throw me out? I should. You're trouble. So are you. His forehead touched hers. But maybe that's exactly what we both need. She kissed him then, not soft or tentative, but fierce and certain, like she was claiming something she'd been afraid to want, like he was the answer to a question she'd been asking since the day Marcus died. Callan kissed her back with everything he had, tasting smoke and stubborn determination, and the promise of something worth fighting for. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Vesper was smiling, really smiling. Equal partners. Equal partners. Then I suppose I can forgive the rent. This time they stood together watching the sun rise over land that belonged to both of them now. Land they'd fought for, land they'd almost died for, and land that together they'd make sure stayed free behind them. Ruth cleared her throat. I hate to interrupt, but you two should probably head back before everyone thinks you died in that fire. And Vesper, you'll want to rebuild. I know a good carpenter. Vesper laughed, the sound lighter than Callan had ever heard it. I know one too, one who's about to be very busy. They started the long walk back to what remained of the ranch. But this time, Callan wasn't walking alone, and neither was Vesper. They were walking into a future they'd built with their own stubborn refusal to break. A future where the giant cowgirl who owned half the territory and the rancher who'd lost everything found something neither expected. They found each other, and that was worth more than all the land in the world. If you enjoyed this story, click the video on your screen now to watch another unforgettable tale from the frontier where courage and destiny collide in the most unexpected ways. Don't forget to subscribe and consider a super chat to help us keep bringing you more stories like these. Your support means everything to